Hey, everybody, and welcome to Authentic Points of View. I am Danielle Boer, your host as always. Ooh, I am so excited. Season 2 is almost over, guys. One more episode. Whoa, I can't believe it's been a year. This is crazy. I'm so excited. Thank you for listening to my hoopla for a year. Yay. Today is special. So, it's Mother's Day tomorrow. I'm just going to be honest. That's the day we're recording is before Mother's Day, the day before. And I'm going to have two special guests, which is different because I usually only have one. So we're going to have a little panel discussion and it's going to be great. And I hope it's going to be so helpful to you all and very informative. So welcome the moms, Rebecca Whitski and Meagan. I never asked how to say her last name.
I thought you were just really confident. It's Tehseldar.
I'm not that confident. Tehseldar.
Yes.
Yay. All right. See, look how authentic this show is. I just go with the flow. This is real life. Okay. So, welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Me too. I'm excited too. This is so different and fun. And like I said, I hope it's like really helpful and informative to people. And so let's start off by just a little introduction. And we all have stuff in common, but we all don't have stuff in common. That's why I wanted to do talk to you ladies because you have awesome situations with your kiddos. So Meagan, go ahead and just give a little brief introduction, please.
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for having me. My
Oh,
name's Meagan Tehseldar. I'm a mom of a 4-year-old, my baby girl. She is nonverbal autistic, but she still manages to like find a way to have the most attitude of anyone I've ever seen. So she's like definitely my girl. She just doesn't talk as much as I do. I'm also a high school English teacher. I'm really passionate about equity and equitable teaching in schools, making sure that our students have mental health access and supporting our special needs students. I also had my daughter via C-section, and I live in Texas, which is wild right now. So really enjoying that. That's it about me.
That's so awesome. Thank you for throwing the C-section part in there because I want to ask about that too. And then Rebecca, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Certainly. Nice to be here on your podcast. I am Rebecca, and I have 4 adopted children. They each have a unique set of birth parents. So they all have different moms, different dads. There's no shared genes in our household. And each of my 4 children were taken home from the hospitals. They've just lived with us for their entire lives. The other thing that they have in common is they were all exposed to drugs prenatally. So opioids and cocaine and things like that. But they're all healthy now. They're doing great. And I currently have a 16-year-old girl and a 14-year-old girl. And my boys are 13 and 3. And Meagan, I don't know if Texas is the craziest right now because I'm here in Florida and we're a little crazy too.
You're right. I think you're beating us with the crazy level. We're trying really hard though.
That's wishes to both of us.
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Atlanta is a little bit wild in itself too. I think there's so much stuff that goes on here. It's wow. Anyway, that has nothing to do with parenting, but it's crazy. All right. So thank you so much, ladies, for coming on. And I just want to say, so I'm gonna start off with just saying to Meagan, I talked about, well, to all of us, but specifically about your situation. I've talked before about my son, and he has what they used to call Asperger's. And so I actually interviewed somebody that is on the spectrum, and her daughter is as well. And she was a genius, like literally, like I don't even know what her IQ level, but she's genius. So it's really awesome to see and talk to parents that, you know, nonverbal, but they're so intelligent and they
Mhm.
communicate in so many ways. Can you just like name a couple of ways that your daughter communicates with you?
Yeah, so she uses her iPad.
Wow.
When she speaks to other people, she uses it as like an alternative communication device. She doesn't really do it with us though. We always like her therapists always get on us about it that we don't use it enough with her, but we feel like if you can communicate in any way, like that should be your communication style. And so at home, she's much more comfortable communicating by yelling at us. And so, or like she's I mean it's her home, so she's very comfortable, so
Mhm.
usually it's more like through touch at home, through like holding hands, pointing, but out in the rest of the world she uses her communication device mostly, and she's so good at it. It's hilarious. You'll tell her, the other day we were asking her like, are you okay, how are you feeling, and she says, no, people hungry. And we're like, oh, sense, like we don't like people when we're hungry either. So she puts it together still, and for 4 years old and not being able to speak verbally but still having such a sense of humor,
Yeah.
it's hilarious to us, like the things she says and does.
That's amazing. I love that. And you guys seem like amazing parents because I know that this is just me being honest. With my son, I tended to get very frustrated sometimes because I was a very young mom. I had my kids at 18 and 20. And then I didn't tell my story. 18 and 20. And then I have a bonus son, and his father had custody of him. So he moved in right away. And he was 4, and he just moved in, and so he's my son. He will always be my son. And then we had a daughter together once we got married, and she is now, wait, she's gonna be 10. It's crazy. Anyway, so that blended family was kind of difficult too. It was a challenge, but um my second son, when I was young and I was trying to figure out things with him, and he would just scream and he was like acting out and all that stuff, it was really hard for me. I wanted to save him. Like he had a hard time learning and I couldn't, he would just cry and, and I was like, what do I do? So I really give you props because it's hard. You feel so bad when you don't, and that's great that she communicates that well. Like even though he was verbal, a lot of times he didn't know what to say or how to express himself, and he would either like scream or cry. So but that's really awesome that she has an iPad and that you guys are encouraging her. That's great that she's funny. I did comedy for a little bit. Love funny. So that's awesome. All right. So Rebecca, that's so cool about your kiddos. And you said the youngest one is 3, or is that what you said?
Yes. Yes. So
Wow.
we had the first three. They were very close together. They when we brought the third one home, the first one was 2.5 and the second one was 6 months old. And then we had a newborn. So 3 under 3. Crazy times. And then 10 years later, we found out there was going to be a fourth. The one of the birth moms became pregnant again. And so she called us up. We had one of her children already, and she called us up and she's like, I'm pregnant again. Would you like another one? And we couldn't say no. It wasn't in the plans. And we had been a family of 5 for 10 years already. But now we're a family of 6, and it's been a blessing.
Wow. How beautiful. If you don't mind me asking, um, were you ever foster parents or did you just go straight to adopt? I know though you got all of the baby, they were babies, but did you ever foster at all or?
We didn't. Our journey is a lot different than yours in that when my husband and I got married, I was 33 and he was 44.
Hmm.
And so we were starting much later, and neither of us had children, and we both wanted to have children. So we tried to get pregnant naturally, and that wasn't happening. we didn't waste time, and we went down the IVF road, the in vitro fertilization road, and the adoption road at the same time. And it just so happened that the adoption road gave us a baby sooner. And so we just stayed on that road. And so no, we never fostered or had any of our, I've never been pregnant. So yeah, that's how our family came together.
Wow. That's it. I just want to say thank you so much for that. My cousins, they couldn't, my aunt had cervical or ovarian cancer. I'm not sure. I was little, but all of my cousins are adopted. So all three of their children are adopted, and they all have different birth parents. But it's really, they were just our cousins. It didn't matter that they were adopted. And actually, when I was little, I didn't even know they were adopted until I got older, of course. And then you hear that and you're like, well, what does that mean? Okay. They've always been my cousins. They come to the, family reunion and everything. I don't care. So, um, but that's the beautiful thing is getting them as babies is that they've always been siblings. They've always grown up together. And
Yes.
do you think that was a easier process than, do you have any friends that adopted older children or anything like that? And do you think that babies are easier because you have them the whole time, or?
I would say the biggest difference is probably in the trauma that they've experienced, because any baby, even being adopted at birth, is going through some trauma because they're being separated from what they've known for 9 months. And so all of our babies experience that. But if after they're born, they spend 6 months or 3 years or however long in a situation, and then they get adopted, whether they're in an orphanage or living with the aunt, or, usually when kids are available for adoption as toddlers and as young kids, it's because they've gone through some trauma in their life. And so the more trauma you have, the more difficult your life is probably going to be. And so I think that is coming from like the perspective of the mom. I think once the child comes into your home, you're the mom regardless. Like, yep. I can't imagine feeling more of a mom had I given birth to my children. That connection is just as strong. I mean, not that I can really compare it, but I mean, I can't imagine loving my kids more, feeling more connected to them as their mother. So from that standpoint, you could get a kid who's 7 years old and you could still be their real mom. But I think the kids have to go through a lot if they don't get a stable home until they're older. So I'm glad we got ours from the beginning, because it just saved those kids from any more trauma that they may have had they stayed in a bad situation.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, can I ask you, Rebecca, I used to work with a couple. They were amazing, and they ended up adopting but different children, but they were foster parents, and they would take in kids that the mothers were addicted to drugs, during the pregnancy. How did your kids have any like side effects or any symptoms of it or withdrawals or anything, any of the babies?
Yeah, they all did. With the opioid epidemic and how big that's been and how many children it's created, science is finally starting to figure out what all the long-term effects are, because there's this huge population, unfortunately, to study. But if you imagine, moms are told when they're pregnant, don't have too much caffeine, eat healthy food.
Right.
So you can imagine that any toxic substance you put in your body that crosses the placenta, and most drugs do, if you have opioids, they have opioids. If you have Coke, they have Coke. So even if you only have it once or twice, or even if you only have it early in the pregnancy, the fetus is growing and it's being formed, and its central nervous system is being formed. So yeah, each of the situations in my house has been different because the different types of exposure they've had and the length of time. But we have a lot of ADHD in our house. We have some muscular issues. We may actually have a little bit of autism. Not sure yet. A lot of focus problems. And then some of the stuff that comes from traumas, both having been adopted and being a fetus in a womb that was being fed drugs, that's trauma.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's things that my kids are gonna have to deal with for the rest of their lives. But the more that I learn and the more that science learns, the more we can do to help them early. And the early help is the best help. So the little guy is getting the best road so far.
Right,
Because
yeah.
I know what I'm doing this time. The first time, I didn't have a clue. I didn't have a clue. They sent me home from the hospital with all of these babies, even though they had all these exposures. And they're like, oh, they're fine. The withdrawal's done. They're not shaking anymore. They're not, 3 of my 4 babies were all in the NICU for an extended amount of time. But the doctor said, they're fine now. Take them home. Just love on them and everything will work out. Well, not so much.
Yeah. Well, let me just say, Rebecca, not comparing it to you, but moms never know what we're doing. It doesn't matter how old we are. It doesn't matter what the situation is, healthy baby, sick baby, you don't know. You learn as you go. And so you adjust and you adapt and you just figure things out, right? And that's what makes a good parent. It's just like, and yeah, maybe like my 22-year-old do the same things for him that now my 9-year-old, times have changed also because it's been a long time. They're 12 years apart, but also I'm more mature. I know more. I've learned through mistakes, right? We all make mistakes. And I just want to say, Rebecca, that my son that came in my life when he was 4, and then unfortunately I got divorced, and then I moved to Georgia from Ohio. He will always be my son. I got to raise him for 7 years. My only tattoo I have is all 4 of my kids, and it's in a heart, and he will always be my baby. And I haven't been able to see him. They wouldn't let me. So I haven't seen him in a few years. And it's heartbreaking. And that bond, I can't say it was there from day one because it was a really tragic and crazy situation that he was going through and him being away from his bio mom. But I loved him from the beginning, but it was rocky. I mean, him being basically an only kid coming into 2 boys and all this, but I love him as much as the other ones. There's nobody can tell me that's not my child. So I just want to tell you, it doesn't matter if you give birth to them or not. Those are your babies, especially you've had them from day one. Those are absolutely your babies. So Meagan, really quick, I want to ask you about C-section. I'm a nurse and I hear all this stuff, not from nurses, but like I've seen on Facebook and people are like, well, oh, C-sections don't make you, or come on, get out of the town. It's so silly. C-sections are hard. Like
They are.
You cannot feel anything. You can't walk. You can't be independent right away. They want you to get up, but you can't feel. You can fall on your face. I mean, you have to be able to pee on your own, but you can't feel anything. I mean, and so it's crazy. And I was gonna have to have an emergency C-section with my daughter. She was stuck on my pelvis, and that wasn't fun. TMI, but that's true. And so she ended up, I did give birth to her, but C-sections are necessary sometimes to save the mom, to save the baby. So how long did it take you to heal from yours?
Yeah, I think what people don't understand about C-sections, like I think we hear a lot of the time like too posh to push, or like that it's an option. And for me, I didn't really have the option. I went in, I had a doula, I was like ready to do just this like natural, beautiful birth. And my girl just did not want to come. She was a week late and I was still 0 centimeters dilated.
Wow.
They gave me like Pitocin after like 12 hours, still 0 centimeters dilated. Like she was not coming at all. And so we ended up having to do a C-section. But what people don't tell you is that you're, like you said, you're incapacitated for weeks on end. And then there's side effects from the medication that you take. And like my milk didn't come in really well, which I found out way later is sometimes a side effect of all the medicine. And it causes so many things. I ended up getting really bad postpartum depression because I was separate from my daughter for so long, because you don't realize how many muscles you use in your stomach until you can't use them anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say it took me about 6 to 8 weeks, I remember, because I was like, luckily I get off work for 8 weeks with a C-section. It was right about that time that I started feeling like I could move around and stuff. But then I think, again, because of my like milk production, because of what happened with the C-section and everything, I ended up getting mastitis. So I don't think I was like fully healed for like a good couple months. And still to this day, I get like phantom pains in my C-section scar. And I'm like, I don't know, like it's probably in my head, but like, it was a form of trauma for me, for sure, to smell them like burning my flesh. I was like, ooh, no, I'm good. This was not fun.
Mama.
Yeah.
No. And you're awake. Like, people don't get it. You're awake. Like,
and they say like you can't feel anything, but you can't feel pain.
Pressure.
But you
can feel pressure.
Yeah, you feel tugging, you feel pulling. And I was just, it was the weirdest thing ever. I'm glad that I was very drugged up for it, because it was not something that you could like see in my, like all of our post birth pictures. Like, you know, my husband's like, oh, our beautiful baby. And I'm just like, expressions, like staring off into space. And I was like, I wasn't there for a good day after, I would think, like mentally.
You're like, there's a baby. Okay, great. Oh.
It was bizarre. Yeah. And we thought it was going to be like a 3-day labor. And then it went from a 3-day labor to, because she wasn't coming. They were like, it's gonna be about 3 days before you have her. She had her heart rate crash a couple times. And then like 10 minutes later, they're like, well, we have a room open for you. We can get you in the next 30 minutes. And I went from thinking I wasn't going to have a baby for a couple days to having a baby literally like 35 minutes later. So it was a wild ride. I definitely think C-section moms suffer just as much as everyone else. It's just a different way.
It irks my nerves, because that's so silly. Like, literally, you're not allowed to lift, but you have a new baby. So you want to hold your baby. Like, people don't get it. Like, and that's the thing about the world, is like, people want to be so judgmental. And I want to talk about that really quick. Sorry, Rebecca. About like, but just breastfeeding really quick. Okay. So Pitocin, this is what I was told. Okay. With my daughter, because she was stuck, they thought I was just not dilating. They gave me the most Pitocin. It's not funny. The doctor said to me, I gave you the most Pitocin I've ever given anybody in 30 years. Just to know. Yeah. So, so anyway, at that point I said, please do a C-section. I was scared something was happening to the baby and she just wasn't coming, you know? And so anyway, and I wanted to breastfeed so bad because I couldn't with my boys. I didn't produce it. I thought that I didn't know. I was young. My son ended up losing 2.5 pounds, and he was only 8, 9 to begin with. He got really sick. He got jaundice. And because I was young, they kept dismissing me. Well, you're doing it right. I don't know what's going on. And so I had to give him formula because I don't want him to die. I mean, he kept losing weight. And so anyway, with my daughter, so many years had gone by, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I was like so prepared to breastfeed. I was so excited. And then the lactation consultant said, well, they gave you so much drugs that's why you can't produce it. And then I ended up getting issues like not mastitis, but really, really hard. And it was bad. Anyway, so yeah, people don't understand. You just don't understand. And it doesn't matter. Again, it doesn't matter how the baby comes into the world. Even if you have a surrogate, if you adopt, I was thinking about doing IVF, and I'm not going to tell everybody my business because I have a touchy situation that I'm going through right now, and it will make me cry. But with my guy, so with my ex-husband, I got a tubal done, And now I met somebody that I love that I would want to have kids with, but I got my tubes tied. So we thought about IVF. And so, Rebecca, how much into the process did you get? Did you even do any of the hormones or anything, or did you just look into the IVF?
Well, when our first baby came home, I clearly remember she was about a month old, sleeping in her crib in one room. I'm in the other room with my husband. I had been doing all of the IVF drugs to prepare for it, and he's shooting me in the stomach, which is one of the things that you do through the IVF process. So it was simultaneous. I mean, I was
Wow.
getting prepped to give birth myself when we already had a baby. And we actually made eggs and got the eggs implanted, didn't produce a pregnancy, but we had more eggs and we could have kept trying. But because the adoption pathway had already worked, and because it seemed just so much more natural than the IVF process, we ended up getting rid of the extra eggs and just focusing on adopting more kids.
Oh, and that, I just want to say again that how wonderful you guys are, because wow, like to have one baby that went through that, but to have 3 kids at the like little under the age, what in the wow. Like, first of all, that's a lot. It, regardless of if they're going through withdrawals or if they have been adopted, no matter what, 3 under 3, that's hard. How did you guys adjust to that?
It was really hard. I don't have a lot of memories from that time because I think it's just a blur. But my husband and I were both raised in families with 5 kids.
Oh,
So we come from, I mean, I don't necessarily consider 5 a big family, you know, but these days it is a pretty big family. And so we went into it knowing that we were older and knowing that if we were going to have a big family, we had to work fast. So, you know, we didn't have the luxury of, you know, every 2 years. When a kid was available, we grabbed them. And so we did get some help during that first year when we had the 2 6 months apart. You know, we had a woman who came and helped us during the day, but after that, you know, we were on our own.
wow.
And the other thing is we didn't like, they weren't necessarily problematic babies. You know, what the doctor said initially was true, that, you know, once they were okay to come home from the hospital, they were healthy babies.
No.
It only was when they started to grow up and couldn't do all the things their peers could do, or especially in school, you know, school has produced a lot more issues. But as babies, yeah, 3 under 3 is crazy, but it wasn't 3 special needs under 3. It was 3 just regular old babies under 3.
Rebecca, that's still hard.
All right, I'll tell
like,
you this too. My husband and I are both known to be overachievers.
I'd say, wow.
I mean, when we look back, it was all like, you know, okay, you know, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We might have been older, but we had no clue. We had no clue what we were getting ourselves into.
Wow.
It was the plan.
That's amazing. And that's such a beautiful thing for a couple to, because that's hard on you guys too. I think like when you introduce kids, no matter again how do they get introduced, if you have them, or if you get with a partner that has kids, or if you adopt or whatever, okay, it can really put a strain on a relationship sometimes, I feel. And so kudos to both you, Rebecca, and Meagan, because it's a fun ride, but it can make or break you, right? It can make you stronger. It can it can break you apart. So that's awesome that you guys were like, especially when the little one came, because a lot of years had gone by, and such a beautiful thing. You're such a blessing to say, okay, let's do it. And you're like, I got more experience now. Woohoo. You know, like, so you kind of know what to expect, which is awesome. So I'm going to ask, so Meagan, what is the most rewarding thing to you about being a mother?
Such a tough one. Because I feel like there's just, I don't know, I feel like my experience is probably so different than most like parents with neurotypical
Mhm.
kids. I almost said students, my teacher side. But yeah, so for me it's less of like a, oh, when my daughter tells me she loves me or anything like that. And it's
Mm.
more, my favorite thing, the most rewarding part is just like the connection that I know that we have. And it kind of makes me think of what you said, Rebecca, about how like you couldn't love them more if you had given birth to them. And it's the same feeling. Like I can't imagine anything like I don't even know how to express it, because just the way we look at each other, we just get it. We have this like connection, and I I just can't imagine that with any other baby, which is why I'll never have more. But yeah, it's amazing. I think when you raise a child and you spend so much time with them and you are their safe place, that there is just something that they see in you that no one else recognizes. And I think that's the most rewarding part, is that they see who you wish you were. And so you almost have to be
Aw.
that person for them. My cheesy answer, but really
No,
just,
that's
especially because she can't talk. So just sometimes feeling that, and just that feeling that you have as a mom with your child, and just knowing like I'm their safe place. And that's it. That's the best part.
that
And then
almost
they
made me cry. That's so sweet. Oh my gosh. I
I
don't know.
teach English, so I'm pretty good with words. So I have to
That's
sometimes like cut myself off because I'm like, you're rambling now.
no, you're not. That was so fluent and beautiful. Um, Rebecca, uh, what do you think is the most rewarding? And you have multiple kids, so it could be several things, but what do you find the most rewarding about being a mother?
Megan's answer is so beautiful.
Oh,
I I'm gonna say I like to see them out in the world, um, being the people that I've helped them to be. So, like, I'm the opposite of a helicopter parent.
mm.
Like, I give them a long, long leash. So when we go to the playground, like when they were littler, and I would take them to the playground, my kids would be the ones, climbing up the ladders, going to the highest spaces, jumping off whatever they wanted to jump off without me right there. Are you going to be safe? Is it okay? I just let them free. And because of that, they learned their own limitations. And maybe sometimes they fell and they got back up and tried it again. And so when I, like am in a situation, maybe just in our neighborhood, where they're playing with the other kids, and I'm watching who they are and how they're interacting with the other kids, and I see them say something or do something that is along the lines of what I've always wanted for them, to be independent and to make their own choices and things, that's what's really rewarding to me, that you know it's worked a little bit. The things that I've tried to put on them has worked a little bit, and that's wonderful to see.
Oh, it's worked a lot. So before I say mine, because I don't know if mine's just gonna I gotta think about. But that's so that's beautiful. So Rebecca, I wish not that I can take back anything, because I was a helicopter parent so much that it pushed away like my oldest son. And he's 22 now, and I remember when he was like 17, he goes, "You didn't let us do anything." And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget the look that he looked at me like, and he didn't even do anything. My second one was the rotten one that was sneaking out and doing all this stuff. Oh, mama, it was rough. I would have to go look for him at 2 a.m, and like it was hard. But so when my son said that to me, I was like, oh snap, it's maybe my fault. but also my second son is the spitting image of his father that I tried to keep him not away from, but to not be like that. I had him, he's the one with Asperger's, ADHD, ODD, all this stuff. And I tried with counseling since he was 4, all these things, because he started doing things that I was like, oh, that reminds me of how his dad was. And then he still ended up like that. But when it got to the point where, and I listened to my boyfriend, he said, hey, he needs a change of scenery. And I was like, so I let him go live with his dad. And he has never gotten in trouble since. He has not gotten in trouble. He's doing amazing. He became a manager at his job. He's literally going to move to Florida. What in the world? From Maryland. And so I'm in Georgia. He went to Maryland and now he wants to move to Florida. And I'm like, okay, that's a long way to move, but he'll be closer to me. And if he needs anything, mom will come and help him. But yeah, so that taught me. So with my daughter, now that there's such a big age gap, that I try not to be like that. So I think that's amazing that you guys from the beginning like had such a great parenting style that you're like, yeah, figure it out, right? You're gonna fall, you got to get back up. I was like so young that I wanted to do such a good job that it ended up like, not that I did a horrible job. I don't think I did. I mean, but there's times where I could have let them, like I would let my son go to his friend's house and stuff like that. I wasn't that bad. But when it came to like playing outside without me being there, nope, I was scared, And I lived in Baltimore before. So I was like, I thought that mentality of like Ohio, the little tiny town is Baltimore. It's not. But but that made them think like, oh my gosh, So that's cool that you did it that way. I think that's awesome. But anyway, so my most rewarding thing is probably kind of, I think, I don't know. I don't want to talk about my one son, but there's so many. But the fact that my son that I did not birth still calls me mom, and he tells everybody, and I'm gonna cry because I miss him so much. It's been hard. But anyway, um he he's so awesome, and he just thanks me for everything. And I left and that was hard, but I wasn't allowed to legally bring him because he's not my biological kid. So that's rewarding, is that he still considers me his mom, and that I like haven't lost that bond with him. And also like all the kids, just like you said, seeing how well they're doing, and they're older, and like the older ones, and like seeing them like when I went and visited my son at work and stuff like that, like it's so cool. It's like, oh my gosh, you're doing your thing, and like even my daughter, like she's gonna be 10, and it's rewarding like seeing her get ready for her dance rehearsal, and she got the lead part in Moana, and then now she's got a solo, and like all that stuff is so amazing, and just being their support system is really rewarding. So sorry I cried. I always cry.
Fine.
But he'll be 18 next year, so I'm like, I'm gonna see him then. But anyway, all right. So Meagan, really quick, I had postpartum depression as well with my second son, actually. And how did you adjust to having postpartum depression and healing from a C-section and trying to raise your daughter? How did that all work?
Yeah, I don't think I did ever adjust,
Okay.
truly. I still have a lot of trauma, I think, from having postpartum depression. I had really severe PPD, and I've always had anxiety and like just the regular like chill depression, but yeah, having my daughter just threw my hormones completely out of whack. And I think that was, we had a really traumatic incident in the hospital. They had made a mistake with something. I honestly, at this point, because I was in such a fog, they had made a mistake and they had swapped my urine sample with someone else during one of during my intake. Because when I went in to go in, I wasn't supposed to be there to give birth. I was there for the 1 week post, the 1 week late check. And so, they did my like urine sample that you do every time. And there was a mistake where there was another person in the waiting room with the same first name as me, and they didn't ask our last names. And so when my daughter was born, they came in the next day and they had CPS, and they said, your urine screen tested positive for methamphetamines. And I was like, what? And so like, it was insane to me. They called CPS. They told me my daughter was going to be taken from me. I mean, and I'm still in this like post C-section fog. I've got a brand new baby. They're pulling my husband out of the room, telling him like, just tell us, maybe she only tried it one time. And he was like, what? Like, don't try meth for the first time when you're 9 months pregnant. Like,
not typically.
I remember, I'll never forget. They said, maybe someone slipped it into your drink. And I'm like, that's not how meth works, but I'm not going to bring that up because I don't want you to think that means I know about it. So, yeah. And my first full day with my baby, I spent being told by the lactation consultant, you can't breastfeed her because you have meth in your system. And, having CPS come in and question us. They actually locked my parents out of the birthing wing. My dad's out there screaming at security, trying to get in. And still to this day, I think that really triggered my PPD and made it so bad. And still to this day, like if my daughter's school calls and they're like, hey, she ate all her food, like tomorrow, can you send her with more? Cause she's going through like a hungry phase. My mind immediately goes to, oh, they're going to come take my baby away from me. Like, and so I don't think I ever fully recovered from that. And I think that people focus so much on the baby when we have babies or when babies are in our household, that a lot of the time everything else gets pushed to the side. Like the baby's the most important thing, and they are, because they can't defend themselves or protect themselves. But we don't look at what the parents need. And I think that's really hard. And postpartum depression is still people don't talk about it enough, which is crazy because so many women have it in some form or another. So I don't think I never adapted to it. Long story short, it was traumatic. It's still traumatic. I'm still on antidepressants because it's just, it's a long cycle. I don't know if I'll ever re-regulate. But yeah, it's a traumatic thing to feel the feelings that you feel when you have postpartum depression, that, takes you a long time to love your baby and connect with them, and the doubt that comes with it, and that you're not a good mom and all of these things. So it's definitely something like a work in progress, I think. And yeah, long story short, still working on it. Always a work in progress.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. That's horrible.
It's simultaneously a funny story and not
funny. No, it's horrible. And I am a nurse, and I'm like, no, that's why. No, that's so bad. That's not what we do. Like,
it was insane. It was not a nice feeling to have the nurses all think that you are a meth addict. And they were actually really nice. So the nurses were the best. The nurses, I mean, one of them, I remember she was in there crying with me because she was like, obviously you're not addicted to meth. Your child is a chunk. Like, she's like almost 10 pounds. Like, she's fully healthy, a week late. Like, you are obviously not on drugs. And sure enough, when they had to send our tests out for like secondary testing, and they came back and they were like, oops, it was an accident. But
oh my gosh.
Having CPS at your bedside telling you that you're going to be doing home visits and that your child might get taken away from you is scarring for anyone, let alone a mom who has a 1-day-old baby laying next to her.
Wow. I'm so sorry you went through that. Seriously, like that's very scary. But I'm so glad that they figured it out. That's
Me
horrible.
too.
And that, I mean, you can't take away what happened, but thank goodness it didn't go further. And they,
Definitely.
eventually they tested you again. But that's ridiculous. And I'm sorry that happened. And Rebecca, really quick, I didn't ask you. Um, I know you said you're writing a book, but I didn't ask about the adoptions. Are they open adoptions? Do you talk to the birth parents or is it closed?
Both. Two of them are closed, and the one where I have two kids with the same birth mom, it started out semi-open. We agreed before the baby was born that we would have a yearly visit where the birth mom could see the baby once a year. And we did that for like 10 years. And then that was the one who ended up having another baby. So I wish they were all open. I think it's better for everyone involved, the birth family and the adoptive family and the children. But it's worked for us. We have done genetic testing on everyone, like through ancestry.com, and we've made some connections. The ones that are closed adoptions, I've made some connections to their genetic families. And so when my kids are older, I have some leads and stuff for them. But yeah, it's a little bit of both at our house.
Awesome. So how did you tell them that they were adopted? Like, I know there's 4 kids, but um let's just say the first one. How did you even like, what age does that conversation come into play?
It we told them from the very beginning when they were sitting on our lap, nursing and things like that. I'm so glad that you came into our lives through adoption. And so, the word adopt and adoption and all that was right along line. They never didn't know that they were adopted. They grew up knowing that they were adopted and that it was a wonderful thing. It's been a little bit of a challenge with the little guy because I'm so out of practice that I've like every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you you're adopted. I mean, he doesn't know what that means, but I know it's important for me to continue to tell him so that when he does know what it means, he can understand it that way. So yeah.
That's funny. You're like, oh yeah, it's been a while. Let me let me remind you. So, Meagan, I wanted to ask you really quick, what age did your daughter get diagnosed with?
She was diagnosed at 2,
Wow.
maybe 2.5. So my mom is a special ed teacher. My sister's a special ed teacher. My grandpa, or my great grandpa, like pioneered the special education field essentially as we know it. So like,
Wow.
I knew the signs, and I think for a long time people were like, no, she'll grow into herself and all this stuff. And I was like, it's not a bad thing, like, to have autism. It's just the younger we figure it out, the earlier we can give her resources. So when she hit 2, I was like, let's go, kid, like, let's go get tested. And sure enough, I mean, the test it's not genetic or anything. So they just ask a couple of questions, they observe, but she was formally diagnosed at like 2.5. But I would say I knew that she was on the spectrum from about 6 months. I recognized it. I remember crying in my car and being like, something's going on. And so I think you just know your kids better than anyone else. So I knew something was up with her. But yeah, 2.5-ish.
Wow. Yeah. So I agree that something is going on, or even if they're having a bad day, like even though she's she's nonverbal, you can still tell, right? By nonverbal communication, stomping aside, a look, you can tell. And Rebecca, with multiple kids, I know you can tell when maybe they answer you a little bit different, or maybe they just don't do their normal thing. And have you had that with any of them? And you could just, the mom, you're like, oh, something's going on. What happened?
Absolutely. And with multiple ones, it's hard with when one's in a bad mood, it transfers to the others so quickly. Just like when mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. You know, if I'm in a bad mood, everyone's in a bad mood.
That's right. That's how it was when all four of mine, when we lived together, this is a weird, hard situation. But anyways, no, not then wasn't a hard situation, but now that they're all kind of, but yeah, it was the same way. Like literally, if one of them had something going on, then it's like trickled down to everybody. And my son that has well, that's on the spectrum, he thought that when the baby cried, that meant that it was his fault. Like he would say, she hates me, she's crying. And he was the youngest one basically in that sense, because well, I had a stillborn at 25 weeks. That was very traumatic. But and then I had a miscarriage, but he was so little, he doesn't know. And then there was no baby in the house. And then we got a 4-year-old. So he was still the youngest in the sense of being around a baby. He hadn't been around a baby. And so when she came, he's now 10, and everything he thought, she hates me, she's crying, she threw her toy, that means she's mad at me. And I'm like, no, honey, that's not, babies cry. Babies are, and so that was a hard thing to kind of get him to understand that that's just a normal thing that babies do. That doesn't reflect you, it's okay. It's not your fault. But yeah, so that was something too. It was always something. Especially when you have a whole bunch of them. It's like, it's random fun things that happen that you're just like, is this real life sometimes? Or just like with you, Meagan, sometimes how funny your daughter is. You're like, this is so, you're like, is this really happening? Right.
They're always surprising. I feel like kids, especially working with high schoolers, it's the same thing. I'm around like hundreds of kids all the time. The things they say, I'm always shocked.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, high schoolers. I don't know if I could do that. I always wanted to be a little, like maybe kindergarten teacher, but not, I don't know if I could do the older ones. Woo. All right, so what is the best gift that you've gotten for Mother's Day? Let's start with Meagan.
Yeah, so I have my husband, when we moved to Texas, we found this like spa near us, and I feel like I should have like a nice, like, my daughter made me something, but it was not the best present I ever got. My husband sent me away for the entire day. And I did like a full day spa package. I've never, I've gotten like a massage before, but it was literally, I think like 5-6 hours with like 5 treatments. And like in between each one, you get to go into the nice room with your fluffy towel and drink unlimited mimosas. And like,
wow.
It was, yeah. And so now it's a tradition every holiday, every Mother's Day or my birthday, I only get one treatment, but I'll always remember the day that I got all those. And then of course my daughter also like made me some stuff and got me some flowers, and that was cute too. But the spa with the unlimited mimosas will always live on in my mind.
That's awesome though, because we need time for ourselves. Right? Mm-hmm. Even if you're a dad or a mom, it really doesn't matter. A parent, a aunt, a guardian, whoever is raising a kid, the whole
you
family,
have to get away
the village.
From them sometimes.
Yeah, you need a break, like to just be yourself and think and like just have like a little bit of quiet. So yeah, that's awesome. Rebecca, what is the best or multiple gifts, since you have 4 kids? What's the best gift that you ever got?
I'm sticking with the theme. It's time away from the kids. That's it. That's the best gift I can get, is time to myself. This is a busy household that I'm part of. And my husband knows that that's the best gift that he can give me. He's taken all 4 kids away for the weekend before and just allowed me to be home in my house by myself. So, yeah, that's my favorite gift. Just get out of here.
That's beautiful. That's so awesome. I don't know if I ever got that gift. No, I'm just joking. So my favorite gift is probably when they make you stuff. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it was always something different from each kid, and they all are different. So like the one is so considerate and like would make you all these special things, and one would just write like a coupon, right? Like, here's for a free hug. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And then the other one would make me some in school. And now my daughter's like big into like, oh my gosh, she's into like making clay stuff. Like, it's really cool ceramic stuff at 9. So she made something. She made me a canvas, and it says like love and a heart. Oh, so but she's very, very artistic and creative, and so those things are my favorite. But then she goes, "Why didn't you hang it in your room, Mom?" I'm like, McKenna, I can't hang everything. Anyway, so that's fun. All right, so let's see. Meagan, we'll start with you. What is your advice for, I'll let you choose. Do you want to give advice for somebody that has postpartum depression? Because I also had it too. And it's really rough. And I don't think people really understand, or they might not even know that that's what it is. Or do you want to give advice for parents raising autistic children? You can go ahead or you can give advice to both people. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I think just advice for moms is always like universal. Like if you've got kids at home, like just recognize that it's okay to like not like them sometimes, or to, like we said, like get away from just everything. Like as moms, we have so much on us all the time. There's the mental burden, and I think we just feel differently about our children than other people, anyone else in the world does. And that emotional burden of constantly loving something so much, even when you're frustrated, angry, anything, like my advice would be like, just say, I need to step away for a moment. Like that's it. Like I need to step away. And I think especially new moms or moms of children with special needs, it's like you feel this superhero need to be on 24/7. But yeah, that would be my advice. Just look at whoever your partner is, or whoever's helping you in that moment, whoever's raising those kids with you, if you have any support system, and just ask for a moment to step away when you feel like you need it. Not when you feel like you're at your breaking point, but when you feel like I need a moment, just ask for it, because that's what moms need, is just that moment to breathe and recenter. So that's what I would say is my advice.
Awesome. And it's important. Rebecca, what do you think? What's your advice for anyone that wants to adopt children, or anybody that has multiple children? What would be your advice to them?
As far as adoption, I would say that just be trauma informed, because a lot of people just like I did, I just thought that since my kids only ever knew us, that they had no trauma. And if I understood, I mean, the whole, all the resources to deal with trauma has been growing and growing over so many years. And so it's a lot easier to figure it out now. But I wish I would have known a lot of that in the beginning. So hopefully parents having children these days will be more informed. And as far as multiple kids, geez, I don't know what to say. I mean, if you're going to have multiple kids, you know, it's fun. It's fun. It's busy. It's, you know, I personally could not be the parent of an only child. I have to give people like Meagan credit, because I knew from the beginning I could never do it. I could never just have one and be that child's source, like all the things that the siblings provide. Meagan has to provide all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not equipped for that. That's why I have to have all these other siblings around, because I can't give them all of that. So, you know, for me, it wasn't an option except for to have a bunch of kids. And I'm glad that life worked out that way for my husband and I.
Yeah, so it's funny because I have several children, but my daughter is kind of an only child now, because the oldest one has had his own house for a few years, and he has 2 dogs and 2 jobs. And then the second one, like I said, he was 17 and he moved in with his dad. And that was so hard. Like, it was so hard. But now that he's doing so great, I'm so glad that I really was mature enough to, and also the person I'm with, he said, hey, people change. You got to trust that people change. And seeing my son, actually seeing him, like, no offense to him, not have a lot of stuff because of choices he made when he was younger and all that stuff, straightened my son up and was like, oh no, I don't want to be, like, I don't want to live like that. And so I thought the opposite. I thought it was going to push him more to be like that, but it really didn't. So that's a beautiful thing. But now, so she gets to see her brother in Ohio in the summer but she doesn't get to be with any of them now all the time, and that's hard on her. And so she's a single, she's the only child at the house. And so I've had both ways. I've had all 4 running around. And they entertain each other, they teach each other, they fight with each other, but they help each other learn, and it's really amazing. But and that's hard for her, and she's the only girl too. So she's like, why don't my brothers want to play with me? I'm like, because they're grown men, and because they don't want to play with dolls. They're boys. But so yeah, that's really it's a big difference. And because of iPad and stuff, Meagan, she does now entertain herself, or she likes to write, she likes to draw. So sometimes she'll go in her room, but at one point for like a year, when we're there, she's there. She's there, she's like right beside you. Like, she's in the bed. She doesn't sleep in the bed, but she'll like be in the bed until it's time for her to go to bed, or she'll be wherever you are. And that's a beautiful thing. But then it also sometimes is like, go play in the backyard, like, go do something. But anyway, so yeah, I love it both ways, but it's really funny because I'm also not girly. So that's hard for me because she's very girly, and I was a great boy mom. That's what I say all the time. But so the other day I was like, you know what? Let's go to the park and play. Let's throw a football. Let's play soccer, and she's like, okay. So that was fun. But anyway, all right. So we'll start with you, Meagan. Where can we find you? If you want to say like your social media or whatever, you can go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I really only have Instagram, and it's basically just like my account. It's not I'm not an influencer or anything exciting. But yeah, you can see my sweet girl and her grow. My Instagram is at MEGGYHAGE at Meggy Heggy. My husband's last name is Heggy, so
that's so cool.
Yeah. So we figured it was Meggy Heggy is what my friends called me in college when we were together. So you can find me there on Instagram. You can see my sweet girl and all the rude things she says to me using her iPad.
Oh, I'm gonna look you up because I think that's fun. Okay, so Rebecca, where can we find you, and then when will your book be published, if you know?
So I'm currently writing. It's a book to support parents and caregivers that are raising kids with prenatal opioid exposure.
Wow.
So my goal is to have a Kickstarter to fund the process in October, and then the book will come out at the beginning of next year. And you can follow along at my Facebook profile. It's just a regular Facebook profile, Rebecca Whitski. It's REBECCA. Whitski is WHITSKI. So just friend me and follow along. And if there's any questions I could answer for anyone, I'm love to talk about adoption and have a lot of experience in the topic.
Yay! That's so awesome. So I love this. This was so fun. All of our journeys have been different. And my journey has been different for myself too. I went from having a kid at 18 into having a kid at like 30. Whoa, world of difference. But yeah, so this has been so awesome, I think. And I really appreciate you ladies coming on. If you want to say anything else, you can. Meagan, you have anything else to say or
No,
anything?
just thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun. I love hearing and talking to other women about just their kids and their lives and how it looks with all these different situations. So this was really interesting to me that we all have such unique perspectives on motherhood. So thank you very much for this.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on. Rebecca, do you have anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I want to go have coffee with all you guys. Let's
Yeah,
let's meet
yeah,
up
yeah.
at the local Dunkin' or Starbucks. No, it's been wonderful spending these moments with you, and thank you for having this forum, Danielle, with your podcast. So it's great.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing your stories and being vulnerable and honest. And like I said, this is to literally help women. And some women you can't it you just can't get pregnant and it happens. And so I think thank you, Rebecca, for talking about that because it happens way more than we know. And it's hard on Mother's Day for some women. And because if you're a certain age, people just assume that you're a mom and they just might say Happy Mother's Day or something. And then you never were able to be a mom. And some to be a mom, and that's okay. But I know some women that really, really try and struggle and have been trying for 10 years. And so thank you for talking about that, as well as Meagan, thank you for talking about postpartum depression because it was really hard. Like I think I literally just quit my job. And I mean that was not a good choice, but I was like I had the 2-year-old and then this new baby that was born um with eczema and colic, and he was scratched his face as soon as he was born. He was born with an infection. They had to take him away right away. And it was a lot. And he cried and cried and cried, and he was projectile vomiting and oh uh so yeah, so it was hard. And then and it it's a very touchy subject. I feel like mental health, period, people don't talk about. So and motherhood is motherhood no matter what. Even if you became a mom to a 17-year-old, you are a mother. Even if you became a bonus mom or stepmom, you're still a mother. So everybody's special. All of our journeys are unique and special. And I really, really appreciate you guys for sharing them with the audience. And I can't wait to follow your stories. That's exciting. And good luck with your Kickstarter, Rebecca. I know somebody that had great success. Her book just got published actually, and she had a Kickstarter, and her book just came out. I think March, and she did very, very well with the Kickstarter. And her book is also about kids with disabilities, and it's called The ABCs of Inclusion. And it is a beautiful, beautiful book. And I'm really happy for her. But anyway, so thank you so much, Meagan and Rebecca. I can't wait to follow you guys in the future and see how it unfolds. And good luck with your 3-year-old and the word adoption. That's so cute how you said how to keep. And Meagan, good luck with your daughter with her sassy, funny self with the iPad. So thank you, ladies. And I hope you have a great Mother's Day. And I hope that this year you get the best gift ever. And hopefully you guys get to have some alone time tomorrow. All right. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thanks.
Have a great
Have a
day.
great day.
You
Happy Mother's Day.
too. Happy Mother's Day.
Bye.